Welcome, everyone. Good morning. We're delighted to be able to present Finding Funding, a Nonprofit's Guide to Winning in a Virtual World. We are very proud that about 10% of NRVP's members are nonprofit organizations. Many more amongst our membership are part of a board or in some way, shape, or form support the nonprofits. This is a time when there is a great deal of need. The nonprofits were always doing yeoman's work, and they really, some of them facing some pretty enormous challenges and serving populations in great need. Clearly, there's an even greater need now, and with a lot of discretionary budgets cut, corporate funding is not where it had been, and any of the galas that were scheduled may have been canceled. So it just is a very, very challenging time for our nonprofits in Newark and beyond. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things coming up at NRVP, and then I will just explain the logistics and the schedule for this morning's webinar. First, on Thursday, tomorrow evening at 5 p.m., we're delighted to welcome the team from Ironbound Hard Cider. We're very happy that one of our members, Cool Vines Newark, does sell the ciders we will be tasting. So you can run out to Cool Vines, or if you live in a more suburban location, you can go to a Montevino in Montclair to be able to pick up your ciders. In fact, that's one of the errands I'm going to run today, is to get my cider to be ready for tomorrow. That's intended, all of our happy hours are intended as a time when we can come as close as possible to in-person networking, because after the presentation, we'll invite everyone to introduce themselves and say something about their business and whatever they may need. So please make sure you sign up for that and join us tomorrow evening. Next Tuesday, our NRVP Nexus guest is Mitch Khan. Many of you have met Mitch. He is a longtime member of NRVP and has served on the board. He's the owner of Unionware, and he is an absolute genius at finding ways to improve his business model and also in helping other companies to be able to find sources of funding and ways to expand and grow small businesses. So please tune in and make sure you sign up in advance for Mitch Khan. Then we are hoping to be able to schedule a happy hour for next week. After that, we'll be taking a little bit of a break and wish you all a very happy July 4th. And then starting up in July, we're going to be announcing our Nexus guest. On July 15th, we'll be hearing from AJ Gallagher Insurance. Their HR team will be talking about some of the things that existed pre-COVID in terms of employee and employer relations, and so that will be one that will be very valuable. On July 22nd, Kevin Corbett, the CEO of New Jersey Transit, will be speaking. And actually, I apologize, I noted the wrong month when I wrote it down on my paper, but on June 30th at 2 p.m., we're delighted that our annual session with Mayor Baraka will go on, and so we'll be hearing from the mayor on June 30th at our Eye Opener program. So be sure to put that on your calendar and join us for that. There's a lot that the mayor can be proud of now, including the way that the whole COVID situation has been handled, and compliments to everyone in Newark for the way that peaceful protests did happen. And there was not one example, not one incident of anything that happened in so many other cities. So it's a real tribute both to the mayor and all the people of Newark. With that, for today, the format is that I will be introducing our guest, Cheryl McCants, shortly. You all are on mute and your cameras are off. There is, if you look at your list, there is a little hand symbol, and if you want to ask a question, we'll take all questions after Cheryl finishes, but if you want to ask a question, you can put put that hand in the box next to your name. And this is the first time we're doing it, so in theory, I'll be able to turn on your microphone and you'll be able to ask your question. I will also be moderating any questions that you want to type in the question box, so feel free to do that. I'll be directing questions to Cheryl, and I will be moderating anyone that raises their hand to be able to call on you so you can ask your question verbally. The other piece of logistics is that, as I said, all questions will be held until the end. And when we finish with the question period, Chip Halleck will come on to close the program. The other thing that people often ask is whether the presentation will be available. And Cheryl has said yes, that we can share it. So that will be included in your thank you email. Please make sure you fill out your survey and help us to be able to design new programs. If you have ideas on programs, topics that you'd like to present, or things you'd like to hear about, please contact me at NRBP, and I'd love to be able to feature you and include you for those programs. The final piece is that there is a chat box. So if you go to that chat box, Maya Curry, who is instrumental in many things at NRBP, may put up, if Cheryl makes a particular reference, or if there's something that people want to know, that will be in the chat box. So with that, I am going to turn off my camera during Cheryl's presentation. I'll be back with you when Cheryl finishes. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Cheryl McCants with Impact Consulting. Cheryl is a longtime member of NRBP and an ambassador, so many of you have had the pleasure of meeting Cheryl. I can think of no one better to address this topic. Cheryl, please continue.
Thank you, Barbara. So good morning, everyone. As Barbara said, my name is Cheryl McCants, and I know some of you I have yet to meet. And what we're going to do this morning is talk about ways to find funding, specifically as it relates to nonprofits, and specifically as it relates to the current environment that we're in, which is really a virtual world. So a little bit about me. I am the president and CEO of Impact Consulting Enterprises. Been doing this for so long that I've been able to be recognized for it. So a variety of accolades. One of the ones that I am the most proud of is that I, along with a group of other cohorts, I am considered a leader of change for America. And that particular recognition is designed to identify ways to have public and private collaboration, which is a lot of what we need right now, given everything that's going on. So what is happening, right? So if you look down the streets, if you take a look down Park Avenue, you wonder, like, where is everybody? You know, we know that if you want to have a networking function, the number of people that can participate is limited. If you want to do networking or relationship building, make sure you're 6 feet apart, right? So how does that work? And as we all know, a lot of the more traditional fundraising mechanisms via galas or socials, but I need to go to Montclair to get my cider, so I'm going to do that, Barbara, as well. So a lot of what we have normally been doing in the nonprofit space is on hold or has changed. So the question is, you know, what do we do? And that's what I want to talk about today. So we're going to talk about ways to leverage resources, and I'll share some language with you and some sourcing strategies, and also discuss quick and easy tips on communication, because words are so important, particularly now when you don't have the ability to have in-person contact with individuals or organizations. I'll give an overview of strategic funding strategies and also identify resources for grants and grant writers. And before I go on, I want to thank my team. I did not put this program together alone. I never do this in a vacuum. And so, you know, to Team Impact, I know some of you are on the call, not everybody could make it, but I thank you all for helping us be able to share our resources with others. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, you'll see through there, there'll be a few tips and there'll be some basics, and we'll talk about language, we'll talk about funding opportunities. So the first tip I want to share is be the orange in the bowl of apples. And what I mean by that is you really want to know your why. Simon Sinek has a great series and book about know your why. And what we might have to do now is rework your organization's why. And what I'm getting at is people will not necessarily give funds to you because of how you help the underprivileged or the fact that you help the underprivileged, but they will give you money because of why you do it, your passion. And so a simple example is there are lots of organizations that have opened up recently with regards to the Black Lives Matter protests. And there are bail funds that are being set up for the unjustly incarcerated. However, you'll probably find that individuals are more likely to give to an organization that has a commitment to social justice versus an organization that has a bail fund for the unjustly incarcerated. So the commitment for social justice is really the organization's why. So why do we have a bail fund for the unjustly incarcerated? Because we're committed to social justice. So that's just one little tip. There'll be a few others as we go along. However, I strongly recommend that you think of your why. It's the emotion that gets people to give. And it's not how or what, but why. And that why, I've been working on my why for over 30 years. So it's not something that once you figure out you've got it, it's done. It continues to grow and morph, but really be the orange in the bowl of apples. So, all right, so how do we find funding? I got 3 simple steps for you, and they're simple steps, but they require commitment, dedication, and might not be so simple processes. But the first one is research. Get online and follow the breadcrumbs and watch industry leaders. So what I mean by that is you want to see who the big players in your space are, see where their funding comes from, and watch what they're doing. I'll give you some examples of that. We're going to focus on 6 industries and everything from arts and faith-based organizations to business nonprofits, as well as health and medical, and obviously community-based organizations. So I'll give you some specifics after I go through these first 3 steps. And remember, use that Q&A section to ask questions, or so that Barbara can get to me, and then we'll answer your questions at the end of this. So after you've done your research, the next one is pretty simple, right? Follow the money. So here are the areas that we're going to discuss, and that is, I do have a meme. That is my marketing mama meme, and so you'll see her periodically, and I would strongly suggest that you do as she says and follow the money. So whether you are community-based, arts, health and medical, professional or business-related organizations, education and training, or faith-based, no matter where you are, you want to do your research, and you want to follow the money. And then the next thing that you want to do is to recalibrate your fundraising plan, recalibrate your donation plan. So what I mean by recalibrate is you want to ensure that you've got something built into your program that will connect with essential workers. You want something built into your program that will focus on social justice. And please keep in mind, virtual works. I was talking with a client yesterday, and she was planning to have an in-person event. She postponed it, and I was explaining to her that you can still do business just like we are right here today, virtually. So virtual works, and the key to a successful virtual event or virtual webinar or virtual meeting is that you are sharing your story. So that goes back to understanding your why. So you can't really tell your story if you can't tell your why. And you've got to be candid, and you've got to be authentic, because people do want to give. You will find that organizations, corporations, individuals, giving is up despite the economy that we're in, and they want to give, but they want to feel involved. They want to feel vested. There are still some silent investors, yes. However, the majority of the funds that are becoming available and that are being retweaked now require a sharing of the why, to be candid about the story and to be authentic. So, what do I mean? Here's some examples. So, we're going to start with community-focused organizations. My team and I, we just went and we said, okay, who are some of the large players when it comes to community-based or community-focused organizations? They're Feeding America, so we picked Feeding America. We went to their website, we identified who some of their top contributors are, and while it may seem a stretch to get an Amazon or a Bounty or the Coca-Cola Foundation, it really is not. And there are also notable individuals. There are folks right here in New Jersey who are ready, willing, and able. So what I strongly suggest is, if you have a grant writer or don't have a grant writer, all you really need right now is a computer. I'm old-fashioned, I'm old school, so I have a computer, and then I also have my pen and paper. However, it's extremely important that you take the time to find out who the large players in your space are. So you start big and then you whittle your way down, and they all have programs and opportunities. And so specifically, as it relates to community-based organizations, there is, I need my glasses, but Gary Rodkin, he's the retired CEO of ConAgra Foods. He's a Rutgers graduate, and he makes significant donations to the school. So what you want to do is research major donors that are contributing to larger organizations in your space, and find ways that you can reach out to them, fill out the forms. I know there's a lot of paperwork, but do it because it works. So another example is, oops, sorry about that. So another example of opportunities for community-based organizations, so is that we found there's several, but we found two specific open opportunities for community-focused organizations. So the Draper Richard Kaplan Foundation has opportunities around social change projects. There are also grants. These are all grant opportunities, by the way, if I didn't say that. So let me just back up. So these are grants that are currently available. And there's currently a grant available through grantwatch.com is a source that we use to identify opportunities. There are others. I highly recommend them. And you can even whittle down to your state and your region. And when you are filling out grant paperwork, please keep in mind that language matters. And so you want to use words like working with bereaved youth. There's a lot of death that has been going on. So between the George Floyd incident and all the other individuals that have died as a result of all of the conflict that's going on, and the COVID-19 pandemic, where its communities have been hit very hard. So I would say to you that as you are writing your grants and or searching for grant opportunities, you want to look for language around bereaved youth. And there's also grant opportunities for community-focused organizations that want to use media technology to defend democracy, as well as capacity building for communities. So these are grants that were available as of last night. So these opportunities do exist. And again, it's about conducting your research, finding the big players, and then make sure you know your why. So that was community-based. In terms of arts, we went and we looked at PBS. I'm a huge PBS fan, and if you start big, you want to find out who are the players that are funding the large arts-focused organizations. So with PBS, you've got Bill and Melinda Gates, you got Ford, you got George Lucas, Newman's Own, Verizon, right here in New Jersey. You've got the Kellogg's Foundation. So again, what I am strongly suggesting is that while these organizations do service larger entities, there has been a shift, a seismic shift, quite frankly. And these same organizations are looking for grassroots, community-based organizations that they can connect with and fund, basically. So what opportunities did we find available? So I can tell you that Adobe, very interesting. So if you can find a company that has an employee directed giving program, you might want to consider opening up a board seat for a corporate employee that's aligned to your organization's mission and vision, because funding can just be a few clicks away. Adobe has a resource sheet where they walk you through the processes of, you say what you're looking for, they'll connect you with someone in the neighborhood. There is currently a $25,000 grant that's available for an artist that can highlight the inequalities in the justice system. There's also grant opportunities available now for institutions or organizations that are suffering financial hardship because either shows have gotten canceled or postponed, or the tour couldn't be able to take place right now. So again, get online, start big, find out who supports the big players, and then if you drill down, you'll see that they have a lot of opportunities for organizations like those of us that are here and part of NRBP. As it relates to health and medical, we picked the CDC. You know, why not them? They are the major player right now. And the CDC Foundation, not the CDC, but the CDC Foundation is funded by a lot of folks that are right here in New Jersey. So everything from Abbott Laboratories and Adobe, but AT&T, Bayer, Dell, Merck for Mothers. So if you have an organization, for example, that is committed and dedicated to raising awareness about and reducing infant morbidity and mortality rates, you want to reach out to the Merck for Mothers program. They're right here, and they are looking to find ways to help. In terms of grants that we were able to find out, we're suggesting, again, that you put together a strategy. And there are grants available specific for research around transmission of the influenza virus. They're looking for graduate students to help with organizations that are looking to find the behavioral science research that are looking to support their behavioral science dissertation research around issues that are affecting low income and vulnerable families. So again, these are opportunities that we found online ourselves. And so with some research and with some focus, the money's there and it needs to be spent. So let's get it now and get it spent on the things that we're doing. So here's another pro tip. As some of you might be aware, the CARES Act has changed the landscape for a lot of things. And while you might know this, you also want to make sure that your donors know this. But there's a piece in the CARES Act legislation that encourages donations. And in fact, it changes the law as it relates to the amount. Now, I am not giving financial advice. So let me just put a caveat there. So talk to your financial advisor, talk to your accountant, your CPA, but know that the cap for the tax write-off, if you itemize your deductions. So if you've got an individual who's looking to make a charitable donation to your group, you should let them know that the cap has been increased from 60% of the adjusted gross income to 100% of AGI, and they have the ability to carry over the donation from this year to next year. So that's a huge plus. So you can tell them they can give as much as they want, and it will be 100% carryover up to the AGI, and they can carry it over for 2 years. So that's important to know. And like I said, a lot of you probably already know that, but it's something that you want to make sure that your individual donors know as well. All right, so I've got 3 more groups of organizations here that we're going to go through. So the next one is professional business focused organizations. So everybody knows Newark Regional Business Partnership. That's why we're here. And by belonging to those organizations, you get access to webinars like the one I'm giving, but you also get access to other resources to help you move your nonprofit forward. There's the New York and New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council. Full disclosure, they are one of my clients. I have them here because by being a member of their organization, similar to NRBP, you get access to loan information, grant opportunities, corporations that are willing to invest in nonprofits. And we went and picked the National Minority Supplier Development Corporation and take a look at their corporate members. Just go online, look at the corporate members. And the Coca-Cola Company has a huge 5 by 20 initiative. PepsiCo is there, Morgan Stanley, PSEG, Prudential. These are all organizations that are supporting some of the larger professional business nonprofits. And so again, the strategy here is to make sure you know your why, do the research, and put together, tweak your fundraising plan so that you can make sure that you've got the right language and that you know who you should be going after. So in the professional business space, you want to look for grants, or when you are identifying the outcomes of the programs, when you're asking for money, the language that is abuzz now is to improve operational, financial, organizational, and programmatic maturity of organizations. So a lot of that other language has already been there. The idea now is that companies are looking for nonprofit associations that are here to help businesses stay in business. So yes, it's about capacity building, but it's also about improving the maturity of the organization. 2 existing grants that are available now. One is for computer donations for nonprofits that are providing job training and education services to underserved communities. And another one is a COVID-19 fund grant that is available for nonprofits that are interested in putting together capacity building activities. So remember, language matters when you're researching, when you're starting big, and when you're reaching out to these organizations or you're applying for grants. You have to have the right language so it's not necessarily underserved communities or underserved individuals, but you really want to ensure social justice. So keep those kind of language points in mind. When it comes to education and training focused organizations, we picked Teach for America, and we looked at who their corporate partners were. And with all that's going on in the sports space, NBA Cares, they are a supporter for Teach for America. They're right across the river from us. So, look into NBA Cares. SurveyMonkey is also a sponsor for Teach for America. Code with Clossie, Whirlpool, Cognizant, and Chubb, which is right here in New Jersey. So again, think big, do research, and then apply for the grants. And when you apply for the grants, make sure that you have the right language. So here if you're in the training space, if you're in the educational space, distance learning, social justice education, those are the buzzwords that we're finding in the grants for that space. And so we found some grants that were available to help students and teachers with supplies, technology, equipment, anything that is here to also help with virtual education. There's money out there for those types of programs as well now. So as you are putting together your revamped or reawakened fundraising plan, make sure that you are addressing the points that I've been outlining here, and that your language includes the verbiage that we've been sharing, because that's what folks are looking for. And these, as I said before, these are grants that are available. Well, I don't know if they're available right now, but they were available at 4 a.m. this morning. So that's when I finished reviewing everything. So these are real opportunities that I strongly suggest people go online and take advantage of. So the last type of organization that we're going to talk about is faith-based. I'm not going to say too much about faith-based organizations. I don't know if we have a lot of them here on the phone, on the webinar, on the phone. I'm old school, I told you. But what I would strongly suggest is look at organizations like the Lakewood Church and the Potter's House. They are huge mega churches. They have huge budgets. They do huge things. And I'm not going to go down the religious road. So I'm just going to say, as a Black Baptist girl from Paterson, New Jersey, amen. And I'm going to move on to some language. So as it relates to language, there are monies available to organizations that can facilitate services for individuals with disabilities. There is a huge increase in domestic violence, unfortunately, because everybody's been quarantined with one another. So if your organization has the ability to serve victims of domestic violence, there's money out there for that now. There's money out there to strengthen Muslim communities around the country. And then there are also grants currently available for organizations that can promote the role of fathers in the family and in the household. So again, as I've been saying, it's really important that you think about your language, that you spend some time researching the big players in the space, whittle down to see what opportunities exist for your organization, and respond and reply. Somebody gets the money, so why not us? All right, so here's another pro tip. Endowment. Now this is a long-term strategy, right? And it's a long-term partnership. However, endowments work. And again, I am not giving financial advice. And again, talk to your financial advisor, your CPA, your accountant, and in this case, probably your attorney. However, there are benefits for endowment relationships. And if you can get an endowment, that really has long-term benefits. The funder has tax shelter. The organization can use the investment returns to fund activities. You're not always having to go back to the same, pot or pool. And it really establishes a solid foundation for your organization. So I would strongly suggest, if you haven't considered an endowment, that it's something that you begin to spend some time investigating. All right, so a quick review, and then, want to take some time to answer questions. I'll go back over something. Sometimes I'm told I talk too fast, so if I need to go back, I'll be more than happy to do that. But, a quick review is do your research. Find out who the big players are and follow the money. Look to find out who is giving grants, who is giving monies, and then find out what they are doing for local communities here in the greater Newark area. And you definitely have to make sure that you understand your why so that you can recalibrate your plan. Again, I'm not going to say nobody cares, but there's so many different options for what you do and how you do it. But the why you do it is really going to be your differentiator. And so when you recalibrate your plan, you want to make sure you know your why. And yeah, I'm your marketing mama. So you can contact my team or me if you need some help or if you get stuck. But the important thing is to really do your research and to follow the money. And so I have a quote here from Maya Angelou that always resonates with me. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So I hope I didn't run through that too quickly. And here you can follow my company on Twitter. We are at ICE Branding. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. And we constantly give tips and information that folks can find helpful, nonprofit organizations, information like we shared here today, and others. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Barbara.
Cheryl, thank you so much. That was wonderful. We'll all remember the why. And if anything stands out in this presentation, I think that's very, very important to keep going back. And it's certainly true not only for nonprofit organizations, but for all companies to think about that in their delivery of whatever that they do. You've picked one of my favorite quotes. I love that quote by Maya Angelou, and I hope that that's how we operate at NRBP. I want to remind everyone, first of all, there are some people on the call who are not members, and if you're interested in joining, please contact me. I'd be very happy to talk to you about some of the benefits. Just want to remind everyone that Cheryl is an ambassador, and our ambassadors do help us to make introductions. If there are things you need assistance with, resources you need. We had somebody contact us today, in fact. They're moving their corporate office and they needed a mover, so we referred them to one of our members. We do those referrals all the time. And Cheryl at one point mentioned financial advisors. We have a fair number of financial advisors who are members. So if you need help on that aspect, the bankers, I mentioned yesterday that the bankers have been doing incredible service with PPP loans. We have a number of different bankers that have been working very hard in that arena. So lots of resources within NRBP. We do have some questions, which I'll get to in a moment. But Cheryl, I just want to say that I started thinking of several of our nonprofit members who were not able to make today's call, where there were areas that you mentioned that they specifically address. Perscolis is in the education space. They train for technology. Imagine is a wonderful organization. You know them, they're smiling. And they help children that have had losses in their lives. Very often it's a parent due to illness. But you're right, at a time when COVID is taking far too many people, and there are other forms of bereavement other than just losing someone through death. There's illness, there's loss of income, there's lots of different ways that you can feel grief, and knowing that there are ways that they can get help is pretty amazing. First easy question that I will answer is, yes, Cheryl has agreed to make her presentation available. So that will be attached to your thank you email. Please make sure you open that and respond to our survey. Perscolis is here, so they did get to hear that. That's great. Good. I'm glad. I missed seeing that. Just looking at this one. There's a question about going back the list of donors from Teach for America. So Cheryl, if you could go back to that slide for a moment.
Yep. And then the other thing I just want to point out, Barbara, is that the links to the grant opportunities that I identified will be embedded in the PDF that you'll get to share with folks. So being an NRBP member really has its benefits. Let me just say that, everybody. So you will actually get the links that we've been able to identify. And also, if there is a large enough interest, Barbara will coordinate for folks if they want to have a group grant watch purchase. There's ability to get discounted licenses. You guys can connect with Barbara if you're interested on that, if you're interested in that as well. So here's the list for Teach for America.
No, I haven't done it in a long time, Cheryl. You may know about this, but TechSoup is a organization that helps with getting computer software for the most part. You can buy licenses for different types of programs at a discount if you're a nonprofit organization. And at one point there was a grant making email that you could sign up for. I haven't been part of it in a long time. But I don't know if you know anything about that.
I don't know about the TechSoup opportunity. We did some research on Adobe. And so, you know, Adobe, the Creative Cloud Suite, they do have some programs and some opportunities to get deeply discounted, not just which annoys me, the $5 off because your student monthly subscription, but there are deeply discounted license offerings for nonprofits that are committed to their areas of expertise. So again, that's why it's so important that you look at the language. And so, you know, let me go here. So for the education, it's really important. They're looking for social justice education. And I would also share that Array 101, which is Ava DuVernay's new online education program for social justice, it's there. And there are opportunities to partner with her organization to increase education information around social justice. So again, depending upon how you phrase your business objectives, your programmatic outcomes, and how you do your search when you're looking for opportunities, there's monies out there to be had.
And you're speaking about social justice reminded me to mention that Maya Curry, who I mentioned earlier for her work in setting up today's webinar and all of our webinars and calls, leads our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. And some of you have already been able to attend our intercultural lunches when we were able to be together in person, as well as our diversity training. We held 2 half-day trainings and also did a 1-hour session on unconscious bias. And we're going to be announcing shortly a new series of virtual trainings that will be available. We think it's a particularly important time for NRBP to enhance its role in that arena, and we're very proud that Maya is leading that effort for us and helping us to design the program. So please stay tuned for announcements of what we are doing. Turning back to questions, one of the ones that was a term definition is what do you mean by capacity building?
So capacity building is language that is used to refer to the development of an organization. So that specifically means if you are a small business or a solopreneur just starting out and you need guidance on how to manage your financials, how to put an HR program together, how to put an employee handbook together, how to build up your business. So that's one form of capacity building. Another form of capacity building is if you are an existing organization and you've been in business for 25, 30 plus years and you have employees and you have 1099 vendors, but you can't seem to cross that threshold in revenue or programmatic outcomes or fundraising donations, and you're looking for guidance as to how to leap over, that's also a form of capacity building. So there are organizations that are specifically out there to help you revamp and rework your organization and provide you with the tools and resources. There's the Goldman Sachs business program. There is the Tory Burch program. There is a program by the New York and New Jersey Minority Supplier Development Council. There is the Rutgers CUED program, which is for Center for Urban Economic, something
Entrepreneurial.
development. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Entrepreneurial development.
I always have trouble with that too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's economic and entrepreneurial. Yeah.
Right. So capacity building in a nutshell means that you are given access, or you will be providing organizations with access to help build the capacity of their group. So I believe I mentioned that in the business section. Yes. So if you have a nonprofit like those organizations that I mentioned, and you have the ability, it's more like training, it's virtual learning, it is the ability to help organizations grow. So if your nonprofit is committed to the business space, there's a lot of money, even from the CARES Act and also the Department of Labor. Let me just also point out that there are grants available from DOL New Jersey that are specific to capacity building as well.
Great. We have another question for, let me see if I can read this. Do you have any suggestions for a third-party nonprofits who are raising funds for 10 other agencies? I happen to know this organization well, so I'll just elaborate a little bit more to explain.
Okay.
Greater Newark Holiday Fund raises money for 10 different charities. So the Holiday Fund's purpose is to be able to support and build capacity in 10 different organizations. So the missions are very, very different of each one. So it's victim recovery, children's services, elder care, other needs. And the Holiday Fund is looking for support, but because they're not in one particular arena, the challenge is who is going to, what type of foundation might be open to that, where they know they're doing, they can go to, it's almost like a portal, so you can support one and cover 10.
So my first question is the name. It's called the Holiday Fund. Is that someone's last name? Because otherwise it sounds like it's dedicated towards the holidays.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, it started out, and Allison Orr is actually, Allison, I don't know if you want to raise your hand and explain a little bit more. You can do that if you want to. But it started out as being a Christmas fund 80 years ago. Okay. And the main effort to, Allison did raise her hand. So let me see if I can turn on her microphone and allow her to speak. Allison, I think you should be able to speak now.
Allison?
Did I get the right Allison there? Allison Orr, are you able to speak?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Oh, I apologize for that. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess our struggle is that we don't meet any specific bucket. We are primarily a campaign that doesn't pop up because we are a year-round campaign, but we do really focus our efforts probably around November to end of January, where we really focus and target our donors. But we are around all year. We do accept donations all year. I think our biggest struggle is when we do grants and all of these wonderful things, we're not education specific, or we're not literary specific, like just so many different buckets. So I was just, I guess, wondering if you had any suggestions for people that span not just one category, but that can be numerous categories. I know the why is super important, but is there a way to manipulate the why to say, although, we're primarily numerous things, we do have this one focus, and, is there a suggestion there?
So let me ask you this. The why is super important, and you can support 10, 20, 100 different organizations, but let me ask you, why do you do it?
Our main reason is just to help those who need money when funds are the tightest at the end of the year, to make sure that they have what they need to continue to educate, children, to provide medical services they can afford, basically to really cover the gap where, budgets have run low, and make sure that everyone is receiving their essential services when there's no more money.
Right. So it's really, so what I'm hearing is that your why is to make sure that the end of the calendar year is not really the end of the year. And so it's to make sure that even though, because you mentioned, you kind of focus in towards end of fourth quarter, top of first quarter, the calendar year, right? So I would suggest that you reach out most likely to maybe the MacArthur Foundation or even the Rockefeller Foundation. And I only suggest those entities because they understand what it is to support multiple entities and multiple missions and issues. And I think that your why is almost singularly focused, right? So your why is to ensure financial undergirding when money's run out. And does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. But like usually when you do the grants, it does ask like, are you supporting such childcare, education, so it's not really a bucket where I feel like it's, a common bucket when supported,
Right. So it's not as if it's just one bucket, right? Because your organization, but you have more of a financial support bucket because you are providing finances to other organizations when their money's run out. So you might want to look for monies that are designed to help organizations sustain themselves and not so much something that is education mission focused or something that is healthcare mission focused, but something that is more financial mission focused. And you might even want to consider some of the capacity building, because what might be helpful to those organizations so that they don't run low on funds at the end of the year is for them to work on some capacity building so that they have a business model when they know that fourth quarter, end of Q4, top of Q1 is going to be low funds, that they reallocate. So maybe even considering some capacity building opportunities might be a way for you to service your clients.
Great, thank you. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, now we know how the raising hand function works. So thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Allison, for allowing us to test that. We have a few more questions which I want to get to quickly because unbelievably we are almost out of time. One that was an early question was, where do you find who the major donors are when you're looking at an organization? What's your method for finding out who the major donors are?
That's such an easy question. Thank you for that one. The other one, I had to really use my brain power here. So we go online, and if you look, so here, this is a link to the corporate page of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Let's see, where's another one? We went online to the CDC Foundation and we looked. So you have to dig a little, because not everybody wants to be seen, but we can find you. And so you go to their donor pages, and the larger organizations have both corporate donors as well as individual donors. And so if you go to their website, sometimes if you look like a BMS, for example. So Bristol Myers Squibb, I did not put them on the list only because their current grant opportunities were extremely restricted and were more specific to laboratory work. And I wasn't sure if we would have a lot of those kind of folks on the phone. However, if you go through, they'll tell you, here's what we're looking for, and here's what we can do. They then also say, here's where our money has come from. So all of these groups where we were able to find, again, and it's the PBS corporate partners, they also had PBS individual contributors. So it's really a matter of just getting online. And this specifically, Feeding America, they had COVID-19 response partners. So just go online, do some digging. My team, we do research. If you've got folks in your background that can do research, anyone who just likes to dig and then analyze, right? So you want to look at it and see what makes the most sense. But from the website is where we found this information.
Okay, last question before I turn it back to Chip. Can you elaborate on the Adobe Worksheets a little more with some specific examples?
Now let me get my glasses. And I have that here. Let me see. So yes is the short answer. And so let's see. So when you get the materials from Maya and Barbara, you'll get a link to an Adobe nonprofit resource information sheet. And Adobe specifically has employee-led giving programs, and they also provide a nonprofit resource sheet. And so the link to that specific document will be provided as part of these materials. In essence, it's tips about ways to secure funding, it's suggestions around ways to connect with Adobe in particular. And I would say take this Adobe model and run with it. So just because Adobe posted it doesn't mean that other organizations don't do these programs as well. So any company that has an employee program match, where the employees, if they give $100, a company will match. That company then probably also has the ability for the employees to make recommendations as to how the corporate social responsibility, because not everybody has a foundation. So either the corporate social responsibility entity or their foundation, how you can get that employee to recommend that your nonprofit be one of their organizations. You get that employee to be a champion for you. So just like Barbara mentioned, I'm on the board, but I'm also an ambassador. So I'm a champion for all of the wonderful things that Barbara, Maya, and Chip and the rest of the gang are involved in. So you want to find a company, a corporation that is vested in the work that you do, have that employee become your internal corporate champion. And then that goes back to even the recommendation that I had made earlier about possibly giving a seat on your board to that employee, and that they would be able to direct even more funding your way.
Great. Cheryl, this has been amazing. Thank you. Maybe we can take offline. I'll connect you to the final question that we didn't get to answer on sources of funding for COVID research. So I'll connect you directly to the person who asked that question.
Okay.
But let me turn back to Chip, have him turn his camera on so that we can close out the program. Thank you from me.
Okay.
Thanks, Barbara. And thanks, Cheryl, for taking the time to put this presentation together and to work with and help and advocate for our nonprofit organizations. You do wear an awful lot of hats, and we thank you for doing that, whether it's board member, ambassador, champion you mentioned, and certainly as the marketing mama, we appreciate you and your talents. So thanks for sharing with us today. And your emphasis on reworking the why and really thinking very carefully about what you do, what your end game is, but then communicating that properly is so important. As you said, words really do matter, and especially when you're looking for money. And in these days, everybody is. It is very important. So thank you for sharing your insight and your talents as a resource with our members, and we look forward to connecting our members and you to as many opportunities as we can in the days and weeks ahead. So with that, we hope we will see you in the days and weeks ahead. Barbara outlined some of the other opportunities we have. We hope you'll be on either happy hour tomorrow night or our Nexus call with Mitch Khan next week. Join us for our session with the mayor towards the end of the month. Any of those opportunities are great places to get information and connect, and that's what we hope to do here. So Cheryl, any final word from you? And otherwise, we'll let everybody get to their next big thing to do today.
Yeah, no, I would just say thank you. I hope it's been helpful. Anybody who wants to reach out to me or my team, you have my information. And it's 11:01, so let's go on to the next meeting.
Very good. Thank you all for joining us. Cheryl, thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Be well,
Bye.
everyone.